It's with a true heavy heart that I have to make this video today. We lost a giant in the industry. Stan Lee was truly a Renaissance man, and really responsible and indeed the progenitor for everything we know about Marvel Comics. Through the power of ink and a little bit of imagination, he was able to create an entire universe and indeed several multiverses that comic book readers regardless of age, creed, or color could get completely lost in. Stan Lee nurtured and fostered our wildest imaginations by giving birth to some of the most powerful superhero archetypes in history. Icons that, as kids, we looked up to and related to. There have been several eras in the history of comic books, and November 12, 2018 ushers in a new era. A new era that I think none of us were really ready for. Things simply won't be the same without Stan Lee, but my goodness, what a remarkable legacy. But I don't think Stan Lee would want us to be sad today. In fact, if I could hear that grisly old voice one more time, he'd probably tell me to, keep the show going. So Mr. Lee, this one's for you. Today we're going to be reviewing Diamond Select Toys' version of Thanos, the Avengers Infinity War statue. Let's take a closer look. Now, even if you've never heard of Stan Lee or never picked up a comic book before, I'm sure by now, because of the popularity of the films, we'll all know who the Mad Titan is and the infamous finger snap. Now, I have to admit, for this price point, I wasn't expecting for much in terms of the overall head sculpt, but I have to admit, it's actually pretty good here and a perfect recreation of what we see in the film. There's a lot of detail. Of course, this is indicative of what we see in the movie version, although I do have to say that the head is a little bit too small for the body. So some of the proportions are a little bit off, but not a big deal. Now, the midsection and upper torso of this piece is very impressive. One of the things that's pretty striking about it is definitely the color palette. I love the gold offset against the black, and it really brings out that wonderful shade of blue. I also have to mention that each part of his costume has very different textures, and it just gives it an overall sense of realism. Now, the anthropomorphics and muscular structure on this figure are superb. I really love the detail in the bicep and the tricep muscle, especially in his powerful forearms, and also there are those wonderful carved grooves that seem to go all the way up into his arms. Now, here's the thing that really impressed me about this figure, is definitely the Infinity Gauntlet. Now, apart from the color structure, which is fantastic, you'll notice that there's a lot of detail there, and the paint that was applied really makes it look like metal. And of course, you have the stones, each of them individually colored, and it does look really nice. So I have to give them props for that. Now, hands down, the lower section of this piece is really what turns it over for me. It is masterfully done. Apart from the fact that there's so much detail, I love the stance on this. It looks epic. Now, there is a lot of detail in his trousers, which look fantastic, and as you can see, not only does it highlight the powerful muscles, but also the textures in the trousers. The boots are also done very well and incredibly detailed. I love the color of the black offset against the gold. It's just very well done and gives you a sense of how powerful Thanos is. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that you have to run out and mirror this piece, although it is pretty intricate on the reverse side. There's a lot of detail there, especially in the textures of the armor and his overall outfit. There's also a greater sense of his power in terms of the muscular structure. I mean, just look at the tricep muscles there. But with this piece, I think you're actually taking away from it, because the focal point of this piece is really the Infinity Gauntlet, and you really don't want to do anything to detract from that. So I would say don't necessarily mirror this one. Now, regrettably, I'm not a really big fan of this base, mostly because it's serviceable, but it's not detailed enough to warrant such a character as Thanos. Now, there's a lot of detail in terms of the scrap metal. It's very industrial, and there is a little bit of detail on the rock, but not enough, again, to warrant something like a Thanos. I think they should have done a little bit of better job in terms of the overall detail. Now, the footprint is relatively small, and again, one of the things that I like about this piece is the overall stance, so I can overlook it. Now, although this piece has a few issues, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bad statue. In fact, I'm pretty impressed with it. Now, you have to remember that this is a budget Thanos statue, so if you're not in the market to pay so much for it, I think this is a perfect alternative, because at this price point, it is really worth it. There's a lot of detail here. Now, before I go, I just want to thank the folks over at Big Bad Toy Store for sending this wonderful piece over for review, and if you're interested in this and other collectibles, please visit www.bigbadtoystore.com. Alright everybody, so that's my official review on Diamond Select Toys' version of Thanos, the Avengers Infinity War statue. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next AGR's Pop Culture Reviews. And once again, I just want to thank Stan Lee for everything. What a remarkable legacy, and I'm certain that somewhere in one of the multiverses, he's still telling his stories.